refer to as the universe or as cosmos is essentially a complex amalgamation of forms. All these forms, planets, stars, the whole systems, these are all forms. When these forms evolve over a period of time to become efficient forms, seemingly perpetual, they have become seemingly perpetual in our experience because of the perfection of geometry that they have arrived at. It's not something that it suddenly happened. Each one of these forms have evolved over a period of time. Certain forms which evolved beyond a certain point. When I say a certain point, if a form evolves beyond what the human form is competent of doing, then we would refer to that as the divine form. Because anything that is above our capability and competence becomes divine in our experience. So when we say divine forms, the misunderstanding in the monotheistic religions is that those who have many forms have lost their way. That is, they do not know what divinity is, they have invented too many images. These forms are not invented, they're derived. By observing the nature of the universe, identifying that certain forms are able to perform and exist in a reverberance which is beyond what is normally considered human, then all those forms we identified as divine forms, which are worthy of looking up to. Above all, these are forms we have to learn how to use, how to become accessible to these forms which are more competent forms than our own form. There are natural forms on this planet which can function in a higher intensity than the human form, or we can assemble forms, or we can create forms, a certain combination of forms which will function in a higher way than the way we are right now. In fact, the whole system of yoga is just about arranging or rearranging your own form. These 114 chakras, which are a certain energy forms by themselves, if we rearrange them in a certain way, the same human being who has just flesh and blood, living within the compulsive nature of that dimension of life, can suddenly be transformed into a higher possibility. It is those people who have transformed themselves or the geometry of their existence to a higher level, either by realization or by understanding or by sheer intensity of energy or emotion, they have transformed themselves into a higher geometric form so that their very presence exudes a completely different dimension of energy, a complete different possibility becomes available around those forms. Then we refer to those forms as divine forms. So in India, such people get referred to as Bhagwan, or there are so many other names which essentially means godlike or divine. The nature of the human body has come with a certain arrangement. There's a whole science which has become a very quasi kind of science these days because of the intuitive sciences have fallen on bad places because general integrity in the society has fallen. People start saying things Guesswork is considered intuition. Otherwise, whenever a child is born, usually in India, they used to call a person who's intuitive, who'd come and observe the geometry of the child's body and would say, this is what is possible in this child's life. Not by looking at the stars, but simply looking at the geometry of the child's body, the energetic geometry of the child's body. Probably most of you have heard about how a certain person predicted Gautama, the Buddha's future. He said he will either become a great emperor or a great saint. So this may, for logical minds, this may look like, oh, this is, come on, this or that. Both sides of the coin, if you say you're bound to be right. No, he's only talking about looking at the intensity of the geometry. He's saying, either in the material world, he will achieve great things. Because he's a king's son, he's saying, maybe he will become a great emperor. Or because of a certain observation, if such intensity is there in the child, why would he waste his time ruling over people? He would rather embrace them, which is more sensible to do. He would rather transform them, which is more sensible to do. So, he said the intensity is going beyond being an emperor. Being a king's son, probably he will become an emperor. But when I look at the intensity of the geometry, maybe he will become a great sage. Well, he turned out the other way around. He was not wrong in that prediction. If he had fallen back in his life for some reason, maybe he would have become a great emperor, a conqueror. Maybe he would have conquered many lands and become a great emperor. Great emperors did not happen without so much guile, violence and many things which most people wouldn't want to do in their lives. To be a great emperor, you have to do many things that a whole lot of sensible people will not be willing to do. So Gautama chose the other way around and the prediction was not wrong. The prediction is he's looking at the seed and this can become a great tree. So the geometry of the body, rearranging the geometry of the body is about creating a divine form from an ordinary flesh and bone system that we have. Is something wrong with flesh and bone? Nothing wrong. It comes with its limitations. It's a compulsive form. Is something wrong being compulsive? Nothing wrong if you don't appreciate what it means to be free. Nothing wrong being compulsive. Is something wrong being a creature on this planet? Nothing wrong. It is just that if you die without exploring the possibility of being something more, human life does not get fulfilled. Every life, from the smallest to the biggest, is aspiring to become a full-fledged life. Because the human being has come with this possibility which is quite limitless, because of that, people are trying to fix their ambitions and goals in their life. What is a seamless possibility? People are trying to fix it so that they will feel like achievers. If they pass an examination, they feel great. If they get a job, they feel great. If they earn $1 million, they feel great. Some nonsense like this. This is like, among the lame people, you're a champion just because you have 2 legs. Human possibility has come with a seamless possibility. There is no way you or me can fix a goal, if I reach this, I'm done. It's a stupid way to culture one's life. If you arrange your inner geometry properly, this becomes a machine to go very far. How far it goes internally is entirely determined by the human being, the individual being. But how far it goes in the world are determined by the times, by the society, the social structures, so many things. You may get knocked down on the way. You may not get crucified, somebody may run you down on Highway 8, So, how far we get in the world are subject to many things. How far we get within ourselves is just a question of arrangement of geometry, understanding, realization, understanding and the competence of being able to arrange it. The whole yogic system, starting from the physical phase of asanas to everything, is essentially to reorganize or to re-engineer our geometry in such a way that it begins to function in a way that you have not imagined possible till now. To live your life beyond your ambitions. The stupid ambitions have come to you because of a limited society in which you're living. Based on that, if you are a little one step ahead of your neighbor, your ambitions are realized. No, 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 I'm not just thinking about this, I want to be the richest man in United States. It is still among the lame. Among the lame you're a champion, that's all. So, a seamless possibility need not be encapsulated into something silly based on the circumstances in which we are living right now.
At Matutipila, the trail goes around in an anti-clockwise direction. So all the visitors are circumambulating in a counterclockwise direction. Could that have a negative effect on them?
So this going around Matutipila in an anti-clockwise or a pradakshina as we call it, in the northern hemisphere it has a certain impact, and the reason why any powerful space we say don't go anti-clockwise is you may access power, but the question is, will you be able to handle it? The moment you confront or come in contact with such energies, you must be of a certain stability. A certain level of anchoring should be there. Otherwise, the first things that you will encounter will be terrible forms of various kinds. You will see the Tibetan Buddhism also talking about terrible forms that you will encounter on the way of your sadhana. And also, the Indian tantric sciences also talking about terrible forms that you will encounter and how you need to go through this without flinching a bit. If you flinch a little bit, in tantric stories everybody's saying this, if you as much as, find a little jerk in your system, then you will die vomiting blood. That's always the threat, that if you see some terrible form like Chinnamasta and if you flinch, you will die vomiting blood. This is a regular story that goes. So, this going around the Vishuddhi energy, which has been symbolized as Shiva's throat, symbolized as poison gathered, and if it turns the wrong way, vomiting blood could be a natural outcome. I don't know if there is lore and stories in Native American culture of talking about such things, of failed medicine men who went out to acquire something and they will die vomiting blood because Vishuddhi is in the throat. If it goes wrong, that's how it is. And Shiva is a blue-throated one because all the poison is here. Poison or venom should not be misunderstood as only life-taking. A snake or other venomous creatures carry venom in them because that is the basis of their life, their food, their survival, their existence. It is just that some other creature is not able to handle it. That's all it is. So going anti-clockwise and occult practices are always connected. Occult means another dimension of working our physical energies in a way that could be conducive or not conducive, but essentially we are only working physical dimension of energies. That will not come under mysticism, that will not come under spiritual process either. So, anti-clockwise of any powerful space is essentially about that.
The next dimension in the 7 dimensions is naturally Swadhisthana. Swadhisthana means the abode of the self. When Swadhisthana sadhana is done, it gives you a certain freedom. The word, in this country, the freedom movement was referred to as Swatantra. Swatantra means… Swatantra means a technology of the self. Swa is self, tantra means a technique or a technology, a way to become free. Because the biggest bondage is in the way we are reproduced, and the biggest urge is the way the urge for reproduction binds people in body, mind and emotion. So Swatantra means Swadhisthana and Swatantra connected, that you have found a tantra to release the self from these kind of troubles or these kind of compulsions, because now yourself is totally free. One of the important aspects of Swadhisthana is, if your Swadhisthana is established in a certain way, your ability to create. At the lowest level, it's purely reproductive. At the highest level, you can create a god if you wish. The technology of god-making came from this because somebody has absolute control over the Swadhisthana, and one can establish what is considered a divine entity. Of all the things that we can do in this system, Swadhisthana is among the most complex and beautiful way of doing things, but it is also personally a dangerous way of doing things, because if you do too much of it, you may have yourself, but you may lose your body. A beautiful self, but no body. This may happen to you if you go too much on it or if you lose control over it. Many who created divine entities generally felt creating one divine entity was good enough and they gave it all and they left with it, or they gave it all and became dissipated because of that. Some retain the possibility of doing more. Only if all the other dimensions are on, one can deliver a god. You can deliver a god and still live and still maintain potency only if all the other 6 are equally active. Only then one can do this. Well, somebody delivered us, that is also important. We are not saying that is not important, that is also important, that's why we are sitting here. That is also an important aspect, but the highest level of delivery would be delivering a divine entity. So one dimension of Swadhisthana is also this, that if you allow or if you strive to take Swadhisthana above its natural compulsions, which are essentially regenerative, you must understand this. Whatever is referred to as sexuality is not about sexuality. Nature is instigating you to reproduce. In modern societies, people have made it out as if it has a purpose of its own. Yes, people are using it to bind themselves to each other, but fundamentally the longing in the body is to reproduce. If this was not there, we wouldn't be here today. But if you're wanting to go somewhere else other than being a cycle of life, other than being a natural cycle of life, if you want to go beyond the cycle, then transcending these dimensions become important. When one masters one's Mooladhara, which got referred to as Kaya Kalpa, you become like a rock. You want to make the body last for a millennia or more. When Swadhishthana sadhana is done, the burst of energy happens. One can deliver a god, but you may lose your body. If you bring any sound to Manipura without opening your mouth, the very body reverberates the sound. When one is dominant in their anahata, they start hearing things. A reasonably stable person can go crazy. The moment Vishuddhi is active, you become occult competent. Disembodied beings will naturally move towards you. Agna means there is clarity. The level of freedom it gives you is tremendous. The Sahasrar is total madness. The moment energy stirs Sahasrar, you drip ecstasy.
Sometimes we think we know how everything works, our thoughts, our bodies, our life, but then we come across something that humbles us. Something that reminds us that life is not just a bundle of routines, reactions, or roles we play, but something far more mysterious, far more sacred. So as you sit with what you have just heard, there is no need to analyze or overthink it anything. Just let it be. Let the words move through you like a gentle wind through the lens. You don't need to make sense of it all right now. Sometimes the most powerful truths sink in slowly, bit by bit, like moonlight quietly filling a dark room. Maybe you feel something inside you stir, or maybe not. Either way, it is perfectly okay. Growth doesn't always make a loud noise. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it simply sits with you in silence. There are so many layers to who we are beyond the surface, beyond the levels, and sometimes it just takes one word, one idea to awaken a whole new direction within us. You don't need to chase it, you don't need to force it. Just stay open, curious, and still. If anything in this video brought up a feeling you quite can't explain, honor that. You don't have to name it. Let your inner space stay secret and undisturbed. Let it breathe. And if your mind feels heavy with questions, why this, how that, don't rush for answers. Let them come in their own time. You are not here to figure everything out in one sitting. You are here to be, to listen, to feel, to wonder. Wherever you are in your life right now, know that is enough. You don't need to be more or do more or understand more in this moment. Just your willingness to listen, to pause, to stay with yourself, that is already a quiet form of transformation. Maybe later today or even days from now, something from this will return to you unexpectedly. Not just a thought, but as a shift, subtle yet meaningful. And when that happens, welcome it gently. As always, do remember, this is not a summary of Sadhguru's word. It is simply my interpretation of the deep wisdom he imparted. Kindly keep them separated and do not misunderstand. Thank you for joining, and we will see you tomorrow. Until then, please take care. Namaskaram.
चंद्रचूड़ शिव शंकर पार्वती रमणा निन